We're live on YouTube. I'm just getting the link out and then going to come live here in a second. Hello there, Hawkeye fans. Welcome to the Rapid Reaction Podcast. I'm working on fumes here, so I'm going to try to get my microphone going here. This is a very non-professional podcast today. There we go. Microphone clicked over. I am Rob Howe, barely awake Rob Howe. Got home at 3:30 a.m. Central Time from Champaign. This is the Rapid Reaction Podcast here on HawkFanatic.com. It is Sunday morning, October the 9th, about 8:50 a.m. Central Time. Joined by Jovan Johnson and Jordan Canzeri, former Hawkeyes, and they will give us their reaction to what we saw last night. And like to just open up first with just some general thoughts before I ask you guys specifics. Jovan, thoughts on what we saw last night?
I mean, you've seen a great defensive output again. You saw the youth of the offensive line, their inability to connect, and then you also saw Petrus' inability to hit guys when they were open. And I mean, part of that was because he was under pressure for the most of the game. Kudos to Illinois. They came out with a pretty darn good game plan. That front that they use on their defensive side of the football with that 5-man look is really hard to prepare for because you never really see it often. And they do have some dogs up front. Their defense is really good. So, kudos to them. But you got to capitalize on the opportunities you have when you get turnovers, and especially inside your own 10-yard line.
Jordan, 6 offensive touchdowns through 6 games. Go.
Yeah,
that about sums it up.
yeah. So, as Jay said, I mean, got to be able to hit people that are open. But again, it's hard when you're under pressure and have that in the back of your mind. That defensive front, for Illinois was good. I mean, we knew going in that this was a good Illinois team. I don't know the last time I saw Illinois 5-1. So that tells you enough that this is a different one for sure. But, it's again just tough to see. But our defense did what they had to do. They came up with big plays. We just got to execute, or it's tough when only kicking field goals and got to execute in the red zone. And when you're not able to do that, these are results, because defense, it's tough to hold on all game against a good team. So hopefully with the bye week, we can, again, just go back to the drawing board and see what changes can be made, because need to put points on the scoreboard.
Yeah, for those that watch Stranger Things, we are in the upside down. Purdue, Nebraska, Illinois, all 2-1 and leading the Big Ten West. I don't know. I think I heard it was 1989, the last time that Illinois beat both Wisconsin and Iowa in the same season. So we're in a strange place right now. And Jovan, it's I feel like we're talking about similar things every week. And that's kind of got to be frustrating for the coaches and the players. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where it feels like you're kind of stuck in the mud. Is there concern at all that it snowballs, that it's like, oh crap, here we go again? I asked Laporta about that last night. He didn't feel like, he said we're frustrated, but it doesn't feel like it's like the same movie over and over again. He's seeing different thing each game. Like, it may be more on the off. Like you mentioned, some of the deficiencies. Sometimes it's more on the offensive line. Last night there were a crap load of penalties, which is uncharacteristic. I guess I'm asking you, kind of, do you worry about getting in a funk when the same things are happening, or just being in stuck in neutral?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the players have to give, professional responses. They can't tell you exactly how they feel, but when you're going through the same things over and over and you're starting to see the same story over and over, you know, they understand that. They get it. They are stuck in a funk right now. They can't put the ball in the end zone no matter what the situation is. And that's frustrating. Laporta comes out, has a big game. In the first half, he was, I believe, 6 for 99. I mean, that in itself, I mean, you're moving the ball, but when you get the ball in the red zone, you got to capitalize. And they're not doing a very good job of that. I thought the play calling last night took a step back from what we've seen as they progressed over the last couple of weeks. And they went back to the basics. And, it wasn't really anything special about the play calling. I mean, they did have some plays that had guys open and just couldn't get them the ball because of the pressure and him getting sacked. But you got to win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. If you can't do that, you're going to be in for a long year. And right now, that's the biggest struggle is they can't run the ball effectively. And that's the Iowa way, running the football and then using the play action pass and boot game. But I think this offseason they really need to look in the mirror and they need to go get some receivers on the outside that can create separation in one-on-one situations because Illinois played man-to-man the whole game.
Jordan, it's I know this is not an easiest question for you to answer, and I know you have to be somewhat measured here, but I think at least from the fan standpoint, and when we were talking in the post game with Kirk last night, when things are not going well, people question the scheme. Are we running the right offense? Are the as Jovan said, is the play calling consistent? Are we putting these guys being the players in the best chance to succeed? For you, do you feel like what's being run can be successful? Is it fundamentals breaking down? Is it lack of execution? That's always the pull or the kind of the bump when we get into these situations, scheme versus execution.
I think it's a mix of everything. It's because, as you alluded to earlier, a lot of penalties. Even against Michigan, there were some penalties and really bad points in the game where, just made a big play or this and that. And, but yeah, some certain questionable play calling, it's hard to really get into what's the issue when as we see it's each week it's something and points are getting on the scoreboard. It's tough when your quarterback, again, it's as a football player you understand it, but maybe fans don't as much as when you're getting rocked every other play. That does sit in your mind when you're dropping back and the clock in your head is shorter. You're thinking about, who's going to hit me next before you even let the ball out of your hand. And, I don't know what's going on in his head, but again, there's certain plays where you just got to be able to execute, but it is tough to see right now the offense and the way we've been playing. I mean, this is, I'm just looking at stats right now, 2 touchdowns for Petrus of the year. And, that's just tough. Our running backs last night, I believe it was Williams who averaged about 5 yards a carry.
Yeah, he popped the 21-yarder, but outside of that was the running game was just pretty much non-existent.
Yeah, just not there. 50 yards total in rushing, Illinois to 200. And, again, it's hard on the defense when they got to be on the field so much. But they're playing a great job. Special teams, great job. And after this bye week, we have Ohio State. So that's going to be, I believe we have Ohio State after the bye week. Yep. So that's just another scenario where it's going to be really hard because their offense is more explosive than Michigan's. And defense, I think Michigan's is better, but we know that we're in for a rough day if we can't get something changed on the offense.
Jovan, I know we're kind of again going over repetitive topics here in discussions because it is a lot of the same things we're seeing week to week. I get and like you said earlier, I wouldn't expect. And it was asked of, Jack Campbell last night, Noah Shannon. I'm trying to think of any other defensive guys that came in there. But whoever it was, the line of questioning was, when you're playing defense to the point where you're giving up 9 points on the road and you don't win, and that's happened before, how do you make sure that the locker room stays together, that the defense doesn't start looking at the offense and saying, hey, come on, man, let's go. We're doing our job. Why aren't you doing yours?
I mean, it's team football. There's 3 phases to the game, and in order for you to win consistently, all 3 phases have to work together. And, it's always that, you have my back, I have your back, you scratch my back, I scratch your back mentality. If the offense is clicking and the defense is struggling, the offense is like, hey, we got you. Don't worry. Same thing on the defensive side. If the offense is struggling, the defense is having a good game, they're like, don't worry about it. We got you. All right. At the end of the day, defensively, it's embedded in our head that if they don't score, they don't win. And that's just the way it goes. When you play the game for so long, you start to, become a team player. You don't ever want to be that guy that says to the offense, hey, like, let's go, or, start pointing fingers. Because ultimately what happens is you separate the guys in the locker room and, then all hell breaks loose and the floodgates open. And then, the defense start playing poorly. The offense isn't moving. Like it just creates a lot of distance between the team. And you want to keep that togetherness in the locker room.
Yeah. Conversely, Jordan, from an offensive standpoint, when you're not carrying your weight, does it start to maybe put, whether you realize it or not, start putting pressure on yourself that, hey, here we go again. We got to get this thing going. And it almost is like self-inflicted.
Yeah, I would say the thoughts are most likely there for the guys in the locker room. Same thing for the defensive side of, looking at the offense struggle. But it's just, as Jay said, it's one of those things where you just, even if you feel it, you just can't say it, or you can't act, or, treat any of your guys in the locker room a sort of negative way, because it will do nothing but tear the team up and won't help anything. But the offense, same on the other side. It's like feeling sorry for yourself won't change anything either. So I'm sure they're frustrated. I know that they want to be successful. All the hours that they've put in for practice, fall camp, and expectations into the season. I know they thought much differently, but just have to, as Ferentz always says, you just put it in the box and carry into next week. They can't carry any of the struggles from previous weeks into the bye week and into the rest of the season, because again, you can't change the past. But they got to focus on what is possible and what could come if they just stay united. Because as we said, you just can't attack each other, can't attack teammates, or you can't attack coaches or doubt coaching either, because everybody has to work together or there won't be any success. So yeah, even if those thoughts are there, they just gotta try to push it all out, stay neutral, and just carry on into next week.
What's a bye week like coming off a loss, Jovan? And what do you do to kind of make sure that that previous game doesn't beat you again after the bye?
I mean, you get back to the drawing board. I mean, you go back to practice. I'm pretty sure they're going to practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, typically, and then have the weekend off. But I go back to the drawing board, correct the mistakes that were made in the game, previous game, watch that game and go on to the next, use the next 2 weeks to prepare for Ohio State or whoever you got next. But during the bye week, you hope to get guys back healthy, and start to create some sort of bond or camaraderie between, that offensive line. That's going to be the Achilles heel. If you can't run the football, you got to figure out what mix of guys will work together to effectively get the run game going, because that's right now the biggest struggle.
Yeah, 82.2 yards per game on the ground through 6 games is not going to cut it, Jordan. And I think, we're not rocking on anybody individually, but I think it's obvious the offensive line at this point it makes it so much difficult to do what you want to do offensively when there's inconsistency up front. This is probably a stupid question, but is there anything you can do to kind of expedite the growth up there? Do you just have to go through this and guys get better on the other end? What can you do to kind of, I guess, patch up and do, get the most you can out of an inconsistent offensive line?
There's not much. It's a mental thing for sure. But at the same time, the few things that could be tested is just to, again, change guys around and see maybe, one person is better at guard instead of tackle or vice versa, different things like that. Because, right now it is pretty, clear to see that there's some issues. And again, I still saw certain things where, again, it's like third and so on, and the running back's running out in the route when you just got to stay in and help protect. Like, if I was back there seeing the way my quarterback was getting beat up and knowing where we were position wise in the game, again, I just know for myself, a check down, I'm probably not going to do much with. And that's where you communicate, say, like, I'll stay in, like, I'll help, because it doesn't matter if you go out on your route if quarterback's getting chased by 2 guys and can't even get the ball out anyway. So, those are different things that I hope they see and realize on the film, and just say, like, hey, maybe it's better to stay back with my quarterback and protect him than try to, do something to get the ball in my hands. Because, it's tough as a quarterback when you're just constantly getting hit, constantly getting thrown down. We see it in the NFL. Quarterbacks like Matt Ryan, who we know are good. They're old. He's getting old, but he's good. But my man's getting hit every other play. Carson Wentz, he's a good quarterback. Started off great with Washington, but when he went out against, Dallas and Philly, my man's getting hit on the ground every play and he can't do anything. So it's like, we know that's where it starts. And just like Jay said, I mean, if you can't run the ball, then you can't, play actions won't sell. And that's our bread and butter. So we definitely got to, see what we can do up front, because that is where we have to establish ground and win the line of scrimmage. And again, going up against a team like Ohio State, that's going to be tough to do just in general, even if our offense was playing great every week. So it's definitely going to be a long bye week, but they do need the time to rest. It's been a tough season so far, but again, it's very little to be able to do. It's just a mental thing to stay at it, not get down on ourselves, not give up, not point fingers at all, and just, again, focus on to next week.
As good as the defense has been, Jovan, the last 2 weeks, I know it can't be happy with the rushing yards it's giving up. Michigan ran for, I think, close to 200. Illinois got 200 last night. That's not Iowa defensive football. Noah Shannon said last night he felt it was different. He felt like they were out of position against Michigan at times. Last night, it seemed like there were some like reverse field type plays where there was lost containment. What are you seeing there just from a defensive standpoint in terms of defending the rush?
Just the fundamentals, when you mix in a lot of different guys on the defensive side of the ball, you some guys tend to rely on their fundamentals, other guys rely on their athletic ability. But I see last night, just guys over pursuing, guys, not being in position to make plays when the ball's supposed to come to you. Just it's little things, small details of playing the positions that, help when you are where you're supposed to be and do what you're supposed to do. Just being out of position, so to speak. I mean, running backs like as good as Michigan and as good as, Illinois' running backs are, you can't afford to lose contain. You can't afford to be out of your gap because everything relies on every guy on the field doing their 111th. And that's where, those big runs tend to hit.
Yeah,
And
no doubt.
just to
Go ahead, Jordan.
just to add on that too, it's just, again, it's hard to see what's going on, but then again, you got to just keep that level head and not point fingers. But we know as an offense, it's tough when your defense is constantly on the field. It's hard. And Michigan's Blake Corum and Brown of Illinois, those are, I think anybody can argue, probably top 5 running backs in the whole country. And to just play well, stop them. It's hard when you're constantly on the field to hold guys like that in for a long time. Like I remember, I think it was our 14 season, Melvin Gordon's crazy year, Wisconsin. We held him all game, and then fourth,
remember that game,
huge long run, and it's tough. So it's just one of those things where, again, as we said earlier, everybody, it has to be the 3 sides of the ball, special teams, offense, and defense, or things like that happen. And again, it's still crazy to see that even though, yes, we typically don't let up that much in rushing, the scoreboard still, Michigan was a little different, but last night the scoreboard was still very, very comfortable as a defense. So it's again just tough to see, but it's again just hard.
Yeah, just odd statistical. I know I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but usually when you win the turnover battle, it puts you in a pretty good chance to win. And Iowa won the turnover battle last night, 3-1, had one called back. I haven't seen I can only see the replay from in the stadium when the quarterback went down. They said his elbow was down. I've had people tell me that he wasn't. So that leads me to believe.
Close.
Yeah, it leads me to believe that it's not that definitive.
Yeah, I thought they were going to keep it because on the field they called it a touchdown, didn't they? And then they reviewed.
Yes.
So it was one camera angle showed his hand was still on the tip of the ball, but on the other back end, it saw even before his elbow hit, the back end of the ball was not secure in his elbow at all. So I personally thought that it wasn't enough to overturn it and that it should have stayed a touchdown since that's what was called on the field. But again, it's you don't want to be in situations where calls like that decide the game anyway. So, but yeah, it still was obviously tough to see because that was a great, job defensively to bring it back for a score. Again, our defense knows how to take the ball away and knows how to execute when the ball's in their hands.
Man, I had a great photo. I was right there when Riley was coming towards me on that. And I'm like, all right, I got the photo of the winning touchdown. And oh man, that's a bummer. All right. I won't keep you guys much longer, but it was asked again last night and we've talked about it on here. And I don't think it's a cut and dry question. It's opinion and the quarterback situation. Kirk said they're going to stick with Spencer coming out of the bye. It's such a hard decision when you make that move because if it works, it's great. If it doesn't work, but do you make the move? If we don't make a move, I mean, it's one of those things that's tough to, like I said, there's no easy answer, but just from your thoughts, guys, and I know it's not an easy question to answer, thoughts on quarterback change when offense isn't working, even if it's obviously not just Spencer. We've talked about the offensive line. There's drop passes. I'm sure there are, disconnects sometimes in the route trees, things like that. But Jordan, thoughts on that?
He's, even though it's tough, and I'm sure a lot of fans will be upset to hear, he knows what he's doing where we don't know what's going on inside those walls. Because he's mentioned a few times that Spencer practices great. So if he practices great, but is not so much the parallel in game, the only question is, how well is Padilla practicing? How well is he doing even before getting his chance to step on the field? So, there are a lot of questions, a lot of what ifs, and we won't know. Only the people inside the facility right now do. But I personally would just like to see him get a chance because you just never know. There's times where, again, it's tough, but if you want to become a better player, you have to be able to accept constructive criticism. And I know we say a lot of things, again, with understanding the line situation, but even Spencer, there's certain decisions, even last night when we were trying to move the ball down the field and, get within field goal range to tie. There was a point where Spencer ran, and I think he could have got farther, but again, he slid and only got like a 1 yard gain, and that's killing time off the clock. That's a time when you got to just throw the ball away. There's no reason to run when that's not really one your expert. Shouldn't say expertise, but he doesn't frequently do it. So in a moment like that, when we need as much time as we can, that's a time where you just want to throw it away. So it's little things like that I'm sure they'll notice and see. And again, it's tough in the moment for sure. But hopefully just going forward, some of those things can help out with things and hopefully progress with the offense.
Jay, thoughts on the quarterback situation?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, what really do you have to lose? I love Petras. I think he's a proven leader on the football team. I think what they need to do is work in some, package stuff where, they give Padilla a series here, a series there, just to see what type of chemistry he might have in the game situation and moving the ball. I mean, there's times where Petras is not getting pressured and he's throwing the ball in the guy's feet and stuff like that, where you those are routine plays and throws that, most quarterbacks throughout the country make, routinely. But I think you give them a chance. I think, there wouldn't be no hard feelings in the game if you go out in the game and Padilla gets 4 series, or something, just to kind of gain some game experience. I mean, I think the main reason why they stick with Petras is because of a comfortability thing. They're comfortable with him being out there, being a leader, because he's been out there for a long time, instead of, going with a guy who's less experienced. So I just think you give him a chance. Give him a chance in some capacity. It doesn't have to be an every down, put him out there as the starter, but give him a chance to go in there and see what he can do. Maybe he provides some sort of spark. We never know, but just to having that opportunity to see if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. What do you have to lose at this point?
Yeah, the question that keeps going through my head, guys, is, and we saw it last year, Padilla's more mobile. And I wonder with the offensive line, maybe move, his ability to move a little bit. I would just like to see if that would help.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't have a question there. You guys are in agreement with me.
Oh,
yeah. So I want to say this to folks out there, and I know people that are nasty on social media and don't have any, I don't want to be mean, but that it's something going on in their life that they need to jump on this kid and rail on Spencer. If you saw him come into the post game last night, I don't know if you could just see the weight of the world on the kid's shoulders. And I wonder sometimes if maybe taking him out and giving him a chance to kind of look from the sideline. And then if it doesn't work out with Alex, being able to put him back in, because I think he's mentally strong enough to do that. But the kid came out last night and basically took the blame for everything. And that's the team leader. And when Laporta came in later, he said, that's why we have this guy's back, because he's not pointing any fingers. He knows it's not all him, but he wants to take that pressure on himself. And you guys know this, when things aren't going well, is it harder on anybody than the players?
Not at all. We're the guys on the field.
And
So.
we, from all the hours, sweat, blood you put into it, you're expecting to win every week. So, it definitely stings. Every loss hurts, but some of these losses I would personally, it might hurt just a little more with feeling that weight, feeling that pressure. And yeah, Spencer definitely is going through a lot of it. We know how social media can be now, way worse than when either of us were playing. So, it's rough out there for sure. Even if you just make one mistake, you can get just completely destroyed on social media. So I hope that Spencer just focuses on the team, focuses on himself, focuses on keeping the guys together like he has been. And he just needs to turn his phone off or delete Twitter, delete all the social media. You don't need to look, don't need to see, because none of those things matter. What people say, all it will do is, just hurt. So I hope he just continues to do so, because as we've said, he is a leader. He's a vet. He's experienced and he knows how to keep the guys together. So hopefully that's just what he focuses on. Then again, just doesn't look with anything or care, as you said already, but just not care at all what's being said out there.
Jovan, I know from the outsides, people are going to be like, oh, great, it's a bye week. And then, oh, shit, the number 3 team in the country on the road in the shoe, 100,000. But this is a great opportunity for this team. If you want to get things going, you got a bye week. You have 2 weeks to prepare to upset the world. Is that the approach this week?
Absolutely. You go into Ohio State in the shoe and we've done it before. We've been there before, so it's not like it's not doable or attainable, but there's a lot of work that has to go into it. We got to go back to the drawing board, back to the basics, focus on the fundamentals. And when you get into an environment like that, take it one play at a time. Don't let the moment get too big, and just go out there and plug away and chip away at it. And then things happen. But defensively, you're going to have to play a hell of a game, because you're playing against not only the crowd, but probably one of the best offenses they'll play all season long, and a very explosive offense at that, with a quarterback that could be a Heisman Trophy winner. So, you just got to get in there, focus on what you can do and do your part. And, everybody just got to play their part and, take it one play at a time. Don't try to get ahead of yourself. Don't try to do things you're not usually doing. And I think you can do it. The Hawkeyes can do it. If anybody can upset Ohio State, it could be the Hawkeyes. And I think they have a great chance.
Yeah, CJ Stroud, the Ohio State quarterback, is the current betting favorite to win the Heisman. So that's what Iowa faces. Jordan, this is something you embrace as a competitor, right?
Love going to away games. I'll always love Kinnick, and playing in Kinnick was always awesome, but love going to teams' stadiums and getting a win, especially upset. So, they'll be ready. They'll be confident. You got to be, or, there's no point to step on the field. But I do expect, and hope as well, to see just some exotic play calling. This is a team where You gotta, as Jay was saying, like you gotta focus on your task, your assignment, and just chip away, and not try to personally act outside of yourself. But I would like to see, some exotic play calling, because this is a team where you can't do the typical run, play action. Simple, small. Like you gotta try to be explosive, because they will be. And this is CJ Stroud. We know he's already good, and we know the matchup that's going to be looked at is most likely going to be Riley and Harrison Jr. They said he now has the most 3 touchdown games in Ohio State history for a receiver. So, that's going to be a matchup. But offensively, definitely got to come out with pretty much like you got nothing to lose, because we do have at this point nothing to lose, and you just got to go out there and again try to just step out of our comfort zone and try to do things that Ohio State would not expect at all, because it's definitely going to be a tough one.
Yeah, and Smith and Jigba could be back. He's been out. So if they get him with Harrison, that is a nasty duo. And then you've got the 1-2 punch at running back and Stroud. And a really good offensive line. There's no doubt Ohio State's going to be able to score some points. This is going to be, can Iowa's offense take the step it needs to take? I was thinking back to, and it's not the same because last night's game was 9-6, but Iowa got its ass handed to it back in 2016 at Penn State, then came home and beat Michigan. Different scenario, but nobody saw Iowa beating the number 2 unbeaten Michigan that year, and it did. So I would go into this game. It's going to be tough. Iowa's going to be a huge underdog, but again, it's an opportunity.
Yeah, and it's something where I'm hoping Riley can have himself a Josh Jackson type of day, because what he did that game was unbelievable. And obviously we saw
that was 2014, right? At Wisconsin? No,
that was Ohio State.
Oh, yeah, Ohio State at home, 2016.
That's right, 17.
17.
Because the Michigan game
17.
was 16, Ohio State was 17.
Yep. But yeah, because obviously seeing what we did there was just nobody expected that, and our defense played phenomenal with turnovers and everything. So, we're it's something you don't want to do, putting extra weight on the shoulders, but if we can get some of those, it'll obviously make a huge difference, because just to be able to help the offense out in good field position. And then we also know our good old punter Taylor, we need him to do his thing too. If we can get them backed up with their backs against the end zone, that will provide so much for the team and defense. So, again, if we have all 3 areas working, it's definitely possible to pull an upset against anybody. We've seen it.
Yeah, Hawkeyes had from start of camp to last night 10 straight weeks of pretty hardcore football. So it'll be nice for these guys to refresh their bodies a little bit and minds, I think. And that's probably important. And you guys could probably relate to that, right? It's a grind. And now you get a chance you're still going to practice, but get a chance. Kirk was saying last night, get the young guys a little bit more work these next couple weeks, at least, especially this week before the game prep, and then give the older guys a little chance to recover.
Mm-hmm. It's needed, especially after these tough games, tough losses, just to be able to get extra time to film prep on Ohio State. But as you said, the rest physically and mentally to just be able to reset and just put everything away in the box, everything in the past, and just go out into the next week with full confidence. So I know that it's much needed for them.
No doubt. Wish those guys the best. Hopefully they can put into practice the 24-hour rule and just kind of move on. It's harder in a bye week, but maybe 24-48, then you move on and get ready for Ohio State, because Ohio State's not going to feel bad for you. So you better be ready when you go in there. So we will take next week off here from the Rapid Reaction podcast, be back after the Ohio State game. We'll find out tomorrow what time that game is. If it's a night game, we will do the following morning podcast. If it's a day game, we can do the post game podcast. It's just kind of hard for these guys and for me to do the post night game podcast. So that's kind of the situation. We will let you guys know out on social media and elsewhere what the plan is, but wanted to thank our sponsors. I should probably read the Systems Unlimited. Let me find this. I'm a mess this morning, guys. I'm not awake.
Hey, you see us. We're both doing this from our beds.
Yeah.
You're making me tired, man. I'm going back to bed. Actually, I'll probably watch some NFL today and fall asleep. Support for this podcast comes from Systems Unlimited, celebrating 50 years providing services to people living with disabilities and mental health needs throughout East Central Iowa. A list of their services and upcoming events can be found at sui.org. Thank you to Systems Unlimited and all the other sponsors we have. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks to Jovan and Jordan for their in-depth and much appreciated insight. We will be back. When we'll be back? 2 weeks from today, roughly. And we'll talk to you then.